Hello and welcome to this second presentation on the custom union. It will be partially a repetition from the previous one, however, it is more focusing on implications for South Sudan. So EAC Custom Union Protocol and implications for South Sudan. Alright, let's get on with it. So what am I going to talk about is the legal basis for custom union and the provisions of custom union protocol. Institutional framework for implementation, reasonably important. Implementation challenges, very important. Addressing the issues and potential implications for the custom union for South Sudan. So, just as an introduction, of course, we already know that from the previous presentation that this is the first stage in EAC integration, and the Treaty of Establishment is mandating the establishment of the custom union in the East African community. Let me recap the objectives of the custom union protocol that are specifically in that protocol. All right, so it's to liberalize intra-regional trade in goods on the basis of mutually beneficial trade arrangements among partner states. Promote efficiency in production with the community. Enhance domestic, cross-border and foreign investment. Okay. Promote economic development and diversification in industrialization of the community. All right. So, the scope of cooperation. The scope of cooperation within the East African Community Custom Union Protocol is reasonably large. All right. And so, that scope is in Article 4.1, and it notes the following. So, first of all, it's trade liberalization. All right, we do know that, but this trade liberalization is a broad concept. And so we are also focusing on issues such as trade-related aspects, simplification and harmonization of trade documentation, simplification and harmonization of custom regulations and procedures, trade remedies and prevention, investigation and suppression of custom offenses. All this is encompassed in the Custom Union Protocol and the related regulation. All right, national and joint institutional arrangements. I will be talking about this because this is very important. Training facilities and programs on custom and trade. And of course here the one-stop border posting is an important example. Production and exchange of custom and trade-related statistics and information. Critically important. South Sudan does not have reliable statistics as of yet, and the East African Community Protocol on Custom Unions providing a route towards setting up comparable, internationally recognizable statistics on the matter. Promotion of exports is the scope of cooperation, final scope of cooperation within the Custom Union Protocol. The content of the protocol covers establishment of the custom union per se, custom administration, trade liberalization, trade-related aspects, export promotion schemes, special economic zones. The East African Community Custom Union Protocol covers in detail how to set up and govern by what specific issues is the special economic zones. Exemption regime. So what can and cannot be exempted from the regionally agreed rules on custom union. And general provisions is the content of the custom union protocol. What is the legal and institutional framework for the custom union? The custom union is administered under the custom law of the community, and it comprises of course, the treaty, the relevant provisions thereof, of course. It is the Custom Union Protocol itself, which we just talked about. It is the regulations and directive made by the Council. And the Council always has numerous regulations and directives related to customs. The Council, what do we mean by the Council? We mean the East African Council of Ministers. Okay? Acts of the community enacted by the Assembly. So in addition to the Custom Union Protocol, which of course was there are also acts of the community enacted by the Assembly. So, for example, the One-Stop Border Post Act is an important custom-related part of the regulation on custom. All right. Decisions made by the East African Court of Justice comprise the legal framework of the custom union as well. Relevant provisions of the international law, and one thing strikes in mind specifically is the World Trade Organization custom-related provisions, which are on numerous occasions cited as being very important and part of the East African community overall legislation on customs. All right. Specifically, the administration of the custom union is provided in the East African Custom Management Act, East African Custom Regulations, and the decisions and directive of the customs. We talked about it in the previous presentation also. All right. Continuation of the legal and institutional framework. The East African Custom Management Act was passed in 2004 and is the principal law governing the custom union, of course. Upon entry into force, all partner states renounced their various national custom laws and adopted the Custom Management Act. That is very, very critical. Okay, the Custom Management Act has been amended in 2008, 2012, and 2018, and that is because new issues arise in this important area, as well as when you have so many countries going about with just one key custom law, there needs to be provision for specific characteristics, and sometimes amendments need to be done. What is the implementation structure of the custom union law? Implementation of the custom union is decentralized and involves 4 institutional levels: the Council, the Committee on Customs, the Directorate of Customs, the Customs and the Revenue Authorities are partner state level. Now, this is related to the institutional structure of the EAC as a whole. We had this in previous presentations. We discussed it in that the EAC is various Council of Ministers committees are structured in the following way: is that we have the technical committees, the Committee on Customs, which is a very important committee, which is the technical advisory body, which is comprised of civil servants from customs and national revenue authorities. Then we have the permanent secretaries meetings, and they analyze and produce a report based on their work and the Committee on Customs. This is then forwarded to the Ministerial Council of Ministers, and then to the ultimate Council of Ministers. All right. The Director of Customs at the East African Community is another very important entity, and it is the executive body of the regional programs. It is well staffed with high-level civil servants that have been working on custom issues in their partner states for decades before they went on to work in the East African Community Secretariat. And the task of the Directorate of Customs at the EAC Secretariat in Arusha, Tanzania, is to initiate policies on customs and related trade matters in the community and coordinate the policy implementation in partner states. Critical body. All right, we have discussed the components of the custom union, but let me recap it because these are the key issues. So it's elimination of tariffs for goods produced within the community, adoption of the common external tariff. Competition policy is another important component which I may have not talked about, but it is part of the EAC Competition Act, which supplements the Custom Union Act. Okay, and there is also another key act of the Parliament of the East African Legislative Assembly, which also complements the Custom Union Protocol, and that is the Elimination of Non-Tariff Barriers Act of 2017. I discussed that already. I'm going to skip this as we had talked about it, but I do want to talk about the East African Community Competition Act of 2006. So it aims to promote and protect fair competition within the community. It's very important because if you integrate, if you create custom union, if you do not make sure that there's also fair competition on various issues, the overarching aims and objectives of the custom union can be lost. It covers restraint by enterprises, abuse of market dominance, mergers and acquisitions, partner state subsidies, public procurement, enforcement procedures, consumer welfare, and the establishment of EAC Competition Authority. Important issue as that competition authority was recently established. And so it provides restraint on enterprises, meaning that in order to make sure this fair competition is there in place, it provides definitions as to what it means for companies to undertake abuse of market dominance and the remedy procedures prescribed by that particular law to make sure the companies do not adhere to the abuse of market dominance, do not do that essentially. The restraints and the limits on markets and acquisition in order to make sure there's fair and full, to an extent possible, competition in place. Okay? In terms of consumer welfare, there could also be issues related to competition and related enforcement procedures. Okay. More or less in terms of the progress implementation of the custom union, let me note that since 2005 there was a 5-year transitional period, and East African community, and more or less within that 5 years, successfully implemented in the custom union and internal tariffs elimination. The East African community has set up what I've been discussing, the relevant organizational structures, and that administration of the common external tariff is there now in place. So revisions of the common external tariff based on recommendations from research and analysis taken up by the Secretariat and experts from partner states is now taking place. The most recent revisions are even taking place now. These revisions are critical because a common external tariff needs to be to the point and to the time most up to date in order to make sure that each country benefits from the common external tariff. The custom union legal framework is in place, and I've been outlining this in this and previous presentation, the vast legal framework that is already set up in these regards. Progress with implementation, perhaps it is important to note on trade facilitation and elimination at NTBs. I have discussed the issue on the non-tariff barriers in my previous presentation. So we have, TAMBAN procedures, the law is in there, so on and so forth. But in terms of trade facilitation, progress on implementation of the critical World Trade Organization Trade Facilitation Agreement has also been achieved. And countries, with the exception of South Sudan to a lesser extent, are implementing this critical WTO agreement that sets up the various procedures throughout the world that support trade facilitation. All right. In terms of standards, EAC standards are being harmonized and gazetted, and I had already spoken about this in previous presentation already. This paves the way for further trade integration and faster flow of goods across the borders, all right? In terms of challenges, attainment of free circulation is good is hampered by retention of internal borders. In this situation, the custom union, you technically do not need significant checks at borders. And like at the European Union, where those checks are done often not done at all, and when they are, they're done at the place of production or at the place of sell or so on and so forth. Some key tax and trade-related regimes and policies are not yet harmonized. Of course, the VAT, numerous taxes are not yet. Membership of multiple regional economic communities is a significant problem. I think I've been discussing this in the introductory presentation that, for example, Tanzania, despite being in a custom union, is still part of the South African Development Community, which is a free trade area, also moving to a custom union. And of course, you cannot be in two custom unions or even one custom union and a free trade area because the tariffs you cannot charge tariffs different than the common external tariff, which is required. So this creates a conundrum and is continues to be problematic. New non-tariff barriers continue to emerge and pose new challenges to the flow of trade within the community. Of course, this is a problem all around Africa, very much so in South Sudan, but also in other East African community countries, despite the fact that there are so many procedures and NTB, town-bound programs and laws. Some are being eliminated while others continue to pop up new ones. Dependency on custom taxes as a source of revenue create reluctance in achieving the ideal union, including realization of the single custom territory. That is a critical point. For reasonably poor economies that still, least developed economies, taxation is a problem. And one of the easy ways of finding revenue to pay for roads, to pay for schools and education is at the borders. And so this custom revenue continues to be very important. As I said, discrepancies in internal taxes such as excise and VAT continue to distort the EC market and are a problem in terms of streamlining movement at the border, which is the main point of the custom union. In terms of the administrative structures, there is still some discrepancies and interconnectedness between the center, the EAC Secretariat, and the executing level, the national revenue authorities and the custom departments, is weak. This is coupled with weak regional institutional reminder to drive regional programs, because it is only a coordinating body. The EAC Secretariat's custom department does not have real way of pushing down the reforms. Intergovernmental versus supernatural approach to integration is an important issue. On some issues, perhaps on issues of custom, a supernatural national approach could be the way to go and could be the way to speed up what we're looking to achieve. Better procedures and informal cross-border trade affects trade within the community and the degree of unionization. That is perhaps an issue for another discussion. All right. In order to address the challenges, there can be some significant movements. And what we saw within the last year or so is that especially the continental free trade area has been created. And that is going to decrease significantly with time the complexities of moving goods across borders in Africa. It is going to support the issue of the spaghetti ball effect, where countries are intertwined into regional trade agreements with conflicting and overriding mandates. And so this is the issue where Tanzania is both in SADC and in the European, in the East African community. And so this larger regional trade agreements are supposed to support and streamline by easing some of the complexity of the multiple memberships, the spaghetti ball effect, so to speak. All right. What is important in addressing the challenges is trying to move the economy towards formalization. In situations where East African community countries have many small informal sector firms that do not pay taxes, the custom union isn't very helpful for them because they are not formal businesses, really are not under the rule of law. So, what are the implications for South Sudan with this regards? So, zero tariff on imports from EAC could have negative fiscal effect. Of course, when you don't charge tariffs for trade partners that are one of your largest trade partners, Uganda is actually the largest, Kenya is most probably either second or third largest South Sudan partner for its goods coming from abroad. Then, if you don't charge tariffs, you will have less of a tariff revenue. But hold on a minute, we actually need to look at this in a little bit more of detail. However, tax revenue could still go up as higher common external tariff on goods coming from outside of the community may offset the effects of lifting taxes on goods from the region. What is very important, South Sudan has now reasonably low trade tariffs. Most of the trade tariffs are only of 10%, and every good coming to South Sudan more or less pays about 10%, regardless whether it is a mobile phone, grain or so. The tariff in the East African community is higher for finished goods and for intermediate goods. Well, for intermediate goods it's 10, but for finished goods, of which South Sudan exports quite a bit, like machinery, so on and so forth, it's 25%. And in this case, the revenue will actually likely to go up from implementing of the common external tariff. Hopefully, increased investments as a result of various trade facilitation measures can increase the tax base for domestic taxes, VAT and excise, and as a result, this can lower can increase revenue. Okay, the cost of living for a person may go up or may go down. We don't know. However, what is very important here is for South Sudan government to make sure that it doesn't go up or minimize that as far as possible, because tariffs on sugar and rice, for example, are really high in the East African community. The East African community is protecting these goods. South Sudan is interested in having cheap food to an extent. And the East African community, by the way, is going to help significantly with that, because all the grain, all the fruits and vegetables and so on coming from the East African community will come duty-free. That is going to be an immediate decrease in the price of these goods on the market, and that is going to help significantly for the people of South Sudan. However, there are some commodities, say sugar and rice, where the East African community is not a big producer of, and it imports this. And that is where the tariff can go up. And South Sudan may wish to ask for derogations on this tariff, as I've been talking in the previous presentation. Okay? And so, on the other hand, products such as beans and maize, mainly imported from Uganda and Kenya, may become cheaper as custom duties on these items is phased out. Okay? Implications for South Sudan is that South Sudan is now already implementing, due to the East African community, the HS code, and that is going to help to streamline the custom procedures and streamline custom procedures all along. Implementation for custom union protocol and accompanying instruments is that it requires a lot of training and capacity building that South Sudan will need to prioritize, and this progress is taking place. However, it requires resources, knowledge and skills, and so development partners, EAC Secretariat, partner states will need to support this issue. Thank you very much for listening.